Peg's Boys by Johnny Tudor. The prologue. I'm an old man now, and recent happenings seem to slip through my ever-decreasing memory. But the memory of that day and the guilt I felt then is as strong today as the day it happened. January 1963, London. A cold wind whipped the rain down the grey city street. Passing cars were kicking up spray, soaking the old lady squatting next to the bus stop, chilling her to the bone. Her plea for "any loose change" was falling on deaf ears. It was as if she were invisible to the waiting commuters huddled under their umbrellas. A red route master splashed to a halt. I was about to step onto the open rear platform when I noticed the old lady staring at me. "Hello, Jono," she said. Her deep-set eyes held my gaze, willing me to remember. How does she know my name? I thought. Embarrassed, I turned and mounted the bus. As it pulled away from Dolphin Square, I ran the image through my mind. It slowly dawned on me who she was, but it was too late. I watched helplessly through the sealed windows, running with tears at her lonely, diminishing figure. I wanted to get off the bus and go back, or maybe I didn't. In truth, I'd chickened out, and I've felt guilty about it ever since. I couldn't face what Peg had become. I just wanted to remember her as the vibrant young woman she was, and how she and her boys had touched my life back then. Chapter 1. Cwmteg, South Wales, 1951. Jono. It was the first cold tip I'd ever seen close up. It wasn't a tip in the conventional sense, but a mixture of coal dust, slag and debris from a nearby abandoned iron foundry. The top of it had been flattened off and grassed over, and a gang of local kids were having a great time using it as a rugby pitch. A piece of the tip had broken away from the cliff-like side and fallen into the river below, its landslip of slag adding to the already polluted water. My eye was drawn to a colourful, glassy piece of rock glinting in the water. It looked like a precious stone to my 8-year-old eyes. Its green and blue swirls shone like a rainbow as the sun caught it. I put my bike down, clambered down the slope and picked it up. I was studying its razor-sharp edges when I was confronted by a boy of about my own age. "Have it out to us," he said. I turned to face the skinny kid. He was holding a soapbox cart by a piece of rope. One leg of his 2 long underpants was peeping from below his dirty, patched union flannel shorts. His elbows were poking through the sleeves of his argyle knitted jumper, and his black lace-up hobnailed boots, which most of the Valley kids wore in the 50s, were scuffed and dirty. "Have it out to us," he repeated, fixing me with his gypsy-looking eyes. I didn't understand the boy's lingo, but his clenched fists told me he wanted a fight. I was about to find out that "have it out was" was South Wales Valley's vernacular for "do you want to fight, friend?" A paradox if ever I'd heard one. He raised his fists and took a step nearer, invading my space. I just stared at him, not knowing quite how to respond. "Are you going to fight me, was, or not?" he goaded. "What do you want to fight me for?" I said. "I don't even know you." "Tell me your name then." "Jono," I said. "What's yours?" "Pip. Everybody calls me Pip." "Hey, give us a go on that then," he said, nodding towards my bike. I hesitated. I'd just been given the shiny new 2-wheeler for my birthday, and I wasn't about to give this scruffy kid, as he'd said, a go on it. "Come on, Jono, you can have a go, my gambo, if you like," he wheedled, pointing to his cobbled-together contraption. His gambo, as he called it, was just a wooden box nailed onto some rough planks, precariously perched on top of a set of old pram wheels. I'd never seen anything like it. It had an old piece of rope tied to the front axle to guide it by, and, as far as I could see, no visible way of stopping it. "Is it a deal, Jono?" he asked, flashing me a cheeky grin. The vehicle, if you could call it that, didn't look safe to me, but I was intrigued. So against my better judgment, I said, "OK." He tied the rope of his gambo to the back of my bike, mounted it, and pedalled off down the road at breakneck speed, dragging me behind him. I hung on for dear life, terrified but exhilarated at the same time. "What do I do if I need to stop this thing?" I yelled. "Use your foot against the wheel," he yelled back. "You'll soon get the hang of it." This was fun. At least it was until Pip hit a pothole in the road and I was flung out of the gambo, crashing headlong into a lamp post. I took a deep breath. I was immediately hit by a searing pain. I put my hand to my mouth and felt a sharp edge. I'd broken my front tooth, exposing a live nerve. I gingerly checked it with my tongue. The gap felt enormous, and there was a taste of blood in my mouth. The jagged end of my tooth had gone through my lip, and I was dripping blood all over my jumper. Pip pulled out a grubby-looking handkerchief and tried to stem the bleeding, but he wasn't having much luck. "Where do you live, Wass?" he said. There was that word again. "The Collier's Arms," I spluttered. "Come on then, let's get you home." He bundled me back onto his cart and dragged me down the street to my father's pub. I was greeted by my not-too-happy mother, horrified to find me bleeding on the doorstep. Pip, foreseeing a serious bollocking for his part in the heinous crime, untangled the rope from my back and beat a hasty retreat, dragging his gambo behind him. "Don't forget to come to my party, Jono," he yelled as a parting shot. "I'll tell Peg to expect you." Cut to chapter 5. Clutching a birthday present, I made my way to Pip's house. The large Victorian villa was not at all what it seemed. There was forlornness about it. The house, sandwiched between rows of terrace miners' cottages, was badly in need of repair. There were cracks in the pathway, and most of the windows were curtainless. In the overgrown front garden stood an old Volkswagen Dormobile, up to its rusty sills in weeds. It had a fading paint job of gold starbursts on the side panels and sported a painted banner announcing "Peggy and the Playmates." I tentatively knocked the door. It burst open to reveal a woman of about my mother's age. She was wearing a glitzy dress of iridescent peacock colours of green and blue. Her shock of black hair sparkled with silver glitter dust, and her glamorous eye makeup accentuated her dark Celtic eyes. It was the first time I'd met the flamboyant Peg, and her magnetism was instant. She kissed me on both cheeks, as if she'd known me all her life, gave me a twirl and said, "Come on in, Jono. Come join the party." I followed her through a room that was littered with artwork. Weird collages, all inspired by Rhineland castles. Some of the half-finished ones were scattered about the sparsely furnished room. Mobiles in various stages of completion were hanging on hooks from the ceiling. A mess of plaster of Paris, glue, pieces of glass, paint pots, brushes stuck in jam jars and bits of material, all festooned a coffee table. The walls were plastered with photos of Peg in various showbiz poses, smiling outside the Vagabonds Club in Wiesbaden, arm in arm with a GI in uniform, and a poster that announced, "Appearing tonight at the Snake Pit, Mainz, Peggy and the Playmates." A sound like drumsticks beating out a rhythm on plates and glasses was coming from the next room, becoming louder as we came closer. The party was in full swing. I'd never been to a kids' party like it. There was no jelly, no blancmange, no sandwiches, no crisps, no lemonade. The table had been laid with knife, fork, spoon, cigarette and glass of wine. Pip was sitting at the dining table, drumming with his knife and fork, and 5 other kids were sitting next to him, puffing profusely on their ciggies. "Hiya, Jono," said Pip, handing me a glass of wine. "Glad you could come. This is Frankie, my brother. And that's Di Sideways," he said, indicating a kid wearing National Health glasses with one eye blanked out. "Di got a squint in his eye, see?" he said, noticing my quizzical look. "He got into the habit of walking with his head on one side and now he's stuck with it. Oh, and that's Bounce next to him, 'cause he bounces when he walks. That's Barry Beef over there. His old man is a butcher. And that's Winky Wakelin. We call him Winky, 'cause he got the biggest winky in the school. Oh, where's the food, Peg?" "Just coming," she yelled back, and arrived with what looked like poached eggs on toast, and announced in a grand voice that it was Eggs Benedict. It just looked like poached eggs to me. Peg was a mystery. Nobody seemed to know where she came from. Even though she lived in this little mining town, she had a posh accent and cooked French toast for breakfast. Not the usual spread for 1950s South Wales. But then, Peg wasn't usual.
Sounds good.